The late afternoon sun bathed the small park in golden light. The swings squeaked gently, laughter of children filled the air, and ice cream dripped down sticky fingers. For Daniel Carter, a 32-year-old single dad, these little moments were everything. He sat on a wooden bench, watching his 6-year-old son Ethan struggle to keep his chocolate cone from melting all over his shirt. Daniel chuckled, wiping the boy's face with a napkin. "Slow down, champ. The ice cream's not going anywhere." Ethan grinned, his teeth already smudged with chocolate. "But it's so good, Dad." Moments like these were rare treasures for Daniel. Since his wife passed away 3 years ago, raising Ethan alone hadn't been easy. He worked long shifts at a mechanic's garage, barely earning enough to cover rent and bills. But he always found time for Ethan, even if it meant giving up his own meal just to buy his boy ice cream. Life was tough, but Daniel was tougher. Little did he know, in just a few minutes, everything was about to change. The peaceful park suddenly trembled with a violent sound, screeching tires tearing across the road. Heads turned. Parents pulled their kids closer. Daniel instinctively looked up, his protective instincts flaring. A sleek black SUV swerved to a halt near the park's entrance. Its tinted windows reflected the fading sunlight, hiding whoever was inside. For a moment, silence fell. Then the back door slammed open, and a small figure bolted out. She couldn't have been older than 7, wearing a frilly white dress now smeared with dirt. Her pigtails bounced wildly as she ran barefoot across the grass, her terrified sobs piercing the air. "Help me. Please," she cried, stumbling toward the playground. Daniel's chest tightened. Something was horribly wrong. From the SUV, 2 large men in dark suits rushed out, their expressions cold, their movements sharp. And then Daniel's blood ran cold. One of them pulled out a gun. Chaos erupted. Parents screamed, clutching their children and fleeing the park. Swings were abandoned, strollers tipped over, the playground turning into a stampede of panic. But the little girl didn't stop running. She sprinted straight toward Daniel and Ethan. Her small feet carried her desperately, as if she believed he could protect her. Daniel's instincts roared to life. He had no idea who she was, or why armed men were after her, but he didn't have time to think. The girl collided into his chest, clutching his shirt. "Please, don't let them take me." Daniel glanced at the men. One was already raising his weapon. Time slowed. His mind screamed at him to run, to protect Ethan, to stay out of this nightmare. But his heart saw a terrified child who needed him. And Daniel Carter was not the kind of man who turned his back. "Ethan, get down," he shouted, pushing his son behind the bench. Pain exploded in Daniel's side. He gasped, his body jolting backward, but his arms stayed locked around the girl, shielding her completely. His vision blurred, his knees buckled, yet he refused to let go. "You're safe," Kid whispered through gritted teeth. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. The gunmen cursed, realizing they had no time left. They jumped back into the SUV and sped away, leaving behind dust, screams, and chaos. Daniel collapsed onto the grass, clutching his bleeding side. The girl sobbed against his chest, refusing to let go. "Daddy!" Ethan cried, crawling to his father's side, tears streaming down his face. I'm okay, buddy," Daniel lied, his voice weak. His shirt was soaked with blood. Moments later, police cars and ambulances flooded the scene. Officers secured the area while paramedics rushed to Daniel, lifting him onto a stretcher. The little girl held his hand tightly, refusing to release it even as the paramedics tried to separate them. "Sweetheart," one medic said gently, "we need to help him." "No," she wailed. "He saved me. Don't take him away." Her cries echoed even as Daniel lost consciousness. Hours later, Daniel woke to the sharp scent of disinfectant. White hospital lights burned his eyes. He blinked, groaning softly. His side was bandaged, the pain dulled by medication. "Dad," Ethan's small voice rang out. He was seated by the bed, clutching Daniel's hand tightly. Relief washed over Daniel. His boy was safe. But then he noticed another figure. A tall, imposing man in a tailored suit stood near the doorway. His presence commanded the room, his expression a storm of authority and worry. Behind him, security guards lingered like shadows. And beside him, the little girl. She rushed forward the moment she saw Daniel awake. "Daddy, that's him. That's the man who saved me," she exclaimed, clinging to the suited man's arm. Daniel frowned in confusion. "Daddy." The man stepped closer, his sharp eyes softening just slightly. "I am Alexander Pierce, CEO of Pierce Global Enterprises." And this, he looked at the girl, his face momentarily tender, as "my daughter, Lily." Daniel's breath caught. He had heard the name. Alexander Pierce wasn't just wealthy, he was one of the most powerful men in the city. And his daughter was the girl Daniel had nearly died protecting. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. News outlets called Daniel a hero father, a working-class man who had taken a bullet for the daughter of a billionaire. Strangers left flowers outside the hospital, praising his courage. But for Daniel, the attention meant little. All he cared about was Ethan's safety and making sure the little girl he had protected was okay. Alexander Pierce visited often, bringing Lily each time. She refused to leave Daniel's side until he was discharged. Ethan and Lily quickly bonded, their laughter filling the sterile hospital room. Alexander, however, struggled. He was a man used to controlling every aspect of his empire, but he had failed to protect the one thing that mattered most: his daughter. Watching an ordinary mechanic risk everything for her left him humbled, unsettled. One evening, as Daniel rested, Alexander stood by his bedside. "You didn't know who she was," Alexander said quietly. "Yet you protected her with your life." Daniel nodded slowly. "She was just a kid. No different from my own." The CEO studied him, as though seeing something money could never buy. A proposal that changed everything. Weeks later, after Daniel recovered enough to leave the hospital, Alexander invited him and Ethan to his mansion. The sprawling estate was a world away from Daniel's tiny apartment. Over dinner, Alexander made an offer. "Daniel, men like you are rare. You've shown me something I can't put a price on: true courage. I want to help you and your son. A new home, financial security, anything you need." Daniel shook his head firmly. "I didn't save Lily for a reward. I did it because it was right." Alexander leaned forward, his voice low. "This isn't charity, it's gratitude. And perhaps fate. Maybe our families were meant to meet." Lily and Ethan were already playing together in the garden, their laughter carrying through the open windows. Daniel looked at them, then back at Alexander. For the first time in years, he wondered if maybe just Life was offering him a second chance.